So first of all, guys, sorry for the delay. We had some technical difficulties, so we couldn't allow the visuals properly. Now, so I hope everyone's there now, and I'm audible. So, guys, thank you for joining, and we are going to the purpose of this basically is to make sure we have all the understanding about the partner visas. Okay, and our goal would be to explain as simply and as clearly as possible, so that by the time this webinar has ended, you have all the information in your mind, right? So, and it makes it easier for you to discuss with your partners or potential partners how you will proceed with your application. So let's begin. So guys, first of all, here's a disclaimer. Obviously, this whole webinar is for information purposes, and since migration law is a complex set of laws, there's no way we can cover all the elements in the next 1 hour or 2 hours. So that's why we have to keep all the very concise. So we had to take liberty to combine everything in as simple language as possible, right? So if you have any concerns, do let us know, and we'll go into depth accordingly. So guys, so how we discuss is that basically we'll introduce you the partner visa type, whether it's onshore or offshore. That's like the primary way to figure out like which one are you going for. And secondly, type of relationship. So we'll discuss what constitutes a de facto and how does it work, and how it differs from the married relationship. And then we'll discuss the 4 pillars of relationships, basically how how the government will assess your application and your relationship, right? So there's a proper regulation on it, and that's how we'll discuss it as well. And then we'll discuss some of the key issues which are very common, we get every day, such as Schedule 2 criteria, in which a person has is illegal or they don't have the right visa. So we'll discuss that. And then there are issues, and obviously you have to plan the visitor visa as well. Like sometimes your partner is offshore, let's say they're in Philippines, and you want to bring them to Australia. So there are a couple of options, whether you go for visitor visa first or the partner visa first. That's something we'll discuss at that part. And lastly, we'll discuss how your sponsorship, if you are the sponsor and you're sponsoring your spouse or partner, how it can be refused. So in the 2 of the most common factors why sponsorships are refused is because of domestic violence or the sponsorship criteria, character problems. Okay, so we'll discuss one by one. So let's go. So let's start with the basics. So first thing first, the partner visa is basically, when you talk about partner visas, it's divided into 2 parts. First part and the second part. First part is a temporary visa you get, and second part is the permanent visa you get. So the first application is the most important one, because this is the initial application. This is the initial introduction of your relationship to the immigration. So you have to be very precise and very detailed in this application. So this is like the slightly more important one, in which you get the initial visa. And then secondary application is the permanent one, which obviously is very important, but then again it becomes slightly easier because the immigration already knows your relationship. They already have established your relationship, and they already have the document available in front of them. So it becomes slightly easier for you as well, and it's also easier on the document side. So first of all, let's go with the 820. Now 820 is the main difference between the 2 applications. Is the name, as per the name, 820 or 309. How you should remember is that 820 is called onshore, 309 is called offshore application. Now, when you go with the onshore application, the rules, even though they're very similar, but still there's some differences available over there. So first of all, you should not have your visa cancelled or application refused before you're applying this visa. Secondly, you have to be in Australia to apply this visa, obviously, because this is an onshore visa, because you get a bridging visa for this. And then obviously you have to have a sponsorship, and you have to have a relationship documents. You have to meet the health and character requirements as well, and have no debt to the Australian government. Obviously, this is like a pretty standard stuff. The processing time can range from 18 months to 38 months, but in some cases we've even seen people getting a visa in the next in 5 to 6 months as well. So that's also a possibility. And then we have to also check the Schedule 3 criteria, because when you're onshore, it always matters whether you are illegal or you're legal. If you're legal, then which visa are you on, whether you're on a bridging visa or you're on a substantive visa. So that's something you have to discuss. Coming over to the offshore visa, when you are offshore, you don't get any bridging visa, but the rules are slightly different. So obviously you have to be outside Australia to apply for this, and you have to be a sponsor, be the right age, meaning you have to be the legal age, and you have to meet the relationship criteria, health and character as expected, and obviously you should not have any debt to the Australian government, which obviously you would not have if you're offshore. Now, there's no Schedule 3 problem over here because you're not in Australia, so it doesn't matter what's your status. Okay, and the processing time is slightly faster. It can go from anywhere from 12 to 15 months, and you have an option to apply for the visitor visa right after the lodgement of 309 application. So you have both contrasting visas, but obviously we have to be by the end of this presentation, by the end of this podcast, you'll understand very clearly whether you should apply the onshore or you apply the offshore. Okay, so that's also going to be very much clearer. So as I said, the first visa is a temporary one. So if you're applying the 820 visa, you get the 801 visa, which is PR, after you get the 820. Okay, if you're applying with the offshore visa 309, you get a 100 visa, which is called also second stage permanent visa. So it's a PR, but depends whether you apply onshore or offshore, your PR will accordingly will be either 801 or the 100 visa. The main thing you have to figure out is that essentially the documentation for the second stage visa is very similar. There's not much difference between them, because at that time you will be in Australia whether you applied offshore initially or not. So the main criteria is basically to apply for this visa is that when you apply the partner visa, let's say you apply onshore, you're in Australia, you get married to an Australian citizen, and you apply onshore, which is 820. Now, once you apply the visa, from the date of payment of the visa application, from the date of application, it will take you 2 years to become eligible to apply the 801 visa. Okay, same thing with 309 as well. If you apply the offshore 309 visa, it will take you, no matter whether it gets 309 gets granted or not, from the date of application of the 309 visa, you get the 2-year time period. So once the 2-year time period is done, then you get an immigration approval that you can apply the permanent visa. Usually they contact you or your agent that you're eligible for the second stage visa, which is the PR. So what happens is whether you apply onshore or offshore, you will get the email or let's say the notification after 2 years from the date of submission or the initial visa that you'll be allowed for it. So I'll just to give you clarity. Some people, let's say if you're in Australia, some people get a visa rather quickly. They get a visa, let's say 3 months, 4 months time. It has happened to quite a few people. You get a visa after 3 months. Now, obviously you would assume that you can just apply the after that, but you can't. So what happens is you have to wait. Doesn't matter you got in 3 months or the 4 months. You still have to wait for the entire 2 years from the initial date of submission, and then you can apply for it. Okay, so there's one thing. Now, obviously, now coming to relationships, just to keep it really simple, you're either married or you're in a de facto. There's no third option available, unfortunately, here. So if you're in a married relationship, it's relatively straightforward. Even if you married just one day before, you can apply right after that. So the value of marriage certificate is quite high in the eyes of the immigration. That's what you notice. So de facto is also pretty good, but the de facto relationship, the only challenge is the onus of the whole application to prove that you're in a genuine relationship is on you rather than on anyone else, right? So that's also a factor. So de facto, while they both have similar chances, so don't get me wrong here, you'll get the visa whether you're de facto or in a married relationship, whether same sex or heterosexual relationship, either way you'll get the grant definitely. But it all comes down to how you present your file. So if you're in a married relationship, the rules are slightly easier and they're slightly stacked. They're slightly not stacked against you. In de facto, it's the onus will be on you that you justify that you, despite not having a marriage certificate or any kind of a legal document showing that you're a couple, you are still in a relationship. So that's also another factor. So both have equal chances, but obviously the documentation changes. Okay, now with de facto, so again, this is obviously just a simple comparison between whether you're applying onshore or offshore de facto, because onshore is easier, offshore becomes slightly harder. So when you apply onshore, basically you have to prove that you've been living together, cohabitating for the last 12 months, and and also you have to show that immediately before 12 months, you have lived together. So we are not talking about dating, we're not talking about meeting or calling or messaging, you're talking about living together. That's very important. And the commitment has to be there from the day one, right? That's what they expect. And again, now the question a lot of people ask me that how do we prove that, we were in love the first day we met? Is all about documents, how you prove it to them, right? Your messages, your pictures, all those sorts of things paint a picture for them exactly whether you are being honest or not. So they are very careful about this because there's a lot of cheating going on in the partner visa space. So immigration is very careful about this. So that's the reason the time frame is 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. We're talking about such a long time frame. That's just because there's a lot of cheating happening over here. That's why they're just trying to be careful. Okay. So obviously you have to show that you're in a 12-month relationship, and the 12-month requirement will not apply if the applicant shows compelling or compassionate circumstances. For example, if you had pregnancy or childbirth. Now, obviously, if you're pregnant with your partner's child or something, it makes your case even stronger, because having a child together in itself is the biggest evidence that you are committed to be together and you are in a genuine and continuing relationship. So that's very important. So obviously these things do matter. So again, if you notice, a lot of things matter as per your relationship. Your relationship can be easily proven, it could be very hard to prove, but it all depends on how you put it out there. Okay, and that's obviously our job as a migration agent, as a migration lawyer. We are supposed to help you to compile everything, to make the application such a way that it's self-explanatory, because the way you said it, the way you put it up there, the way you upload the documents also matter. Basically, how you make it easy for the case officer. If you make the case officer very confused that when did you start dating, when did you actually started living together, who moved, whether wife moved or the girl moved, the guy moved, or whatever. So they will ask you those kind of questions. So obviously we have to be prepared, and before they ask, we have to explain it to them, right? So just make it easy for them. And if you make it easy for them, they'll make it easy for you as well. Okay. Now, if you're in a de facto relationship offshore, so again, slightly more complicated, but again, possible that you have to show that you're living together for 12 months. Okay. So obviously that is there, but obviously a lot of times people who are in Australia, they cannot show that, let's say they have a partner in Vietnam, for example. It's very hard to show a de facto couple in overseas, because how it happens is basically if you're not living together, how will we apply de facto thing, right? So there's one option that if you basically, for example, if you want to escape the whole requirement, there's just one way to do it, that you get registered in the government. For example, in NSW, there's a department called births, deaths, and marriages. So their job is to register marriages, births, deaths, relationships, divorces, everything. So what you do is you go to them, you register your relationship, and get a certificate. And that certificate is very solid, and that certificate can establish that you're in a relationship. So the good thing about the certificate is only one of the two partners has to be in Australia, and they can still get the certificate. So that's the right way to do it. Now the certificate takes 55 days to be issued. So a lot of time what we do is once we submitted it, we can apply the visa, and we can, once we receive it, we'll upload it, but we can still apply the visa. So now coming to the another critical part. So for any partner visa, the fundamental thing comes down to the relationship. And when you talk about relationship, 4 key elements: financial aspect of the relationship, nature of household, social aspect, and the nature of commitment. So they'll look at these 4 components to figure out whether you are in a genuine relationship or not, whether you should be granted a visa quickly or not. So it comes down to this. Obviously, if you're, let's say, let's go one by one. Okay. So the first thing is financial aspects. So financial aspect, as the name says, it's quite clear that you have to show that you're spending the money together. You are basically having the assets and liabilities together. For example, as you see in the examples, household bills in both names. So this shows that you're in a commitment relationship. For example, living together, one person is paying the, let's say, electricity bill, other can add their names to the electricity bill, or alternatively you can pay different things. One person can pay the gas, other person can pay the electricity or the internet, right? So those things show that their commitment is there. Okay. Second thing is joint bank account statements. Now, joint bank account again is one of the key documents because this shows that how are you paying your bills, how are you basically like spending money, like how as a couple, as a family unit, how are you working? So that's also very good a piece of evidence. And then obviously if you have joint loans or assets together, as you own a car together or you own a business together, that also adds, because see that ultimately the main thing you realize is that if you are in a genuine relationship, you will not worry about adding your partner. If you're not in a genuine relationship, obviously you would not want to add the partner to your business or name your assets in their name, right? So those things show that you have the confidence in your partner. Okay. Now, if you look at the nature of household, now this is slightly trickier to explain because nature of household is very wide, basically. So, and the scope is very open because anything to do with household chores or whatever. So you have to explain who's doing what, right? So you have to explain. And now in this, there's very little document you can prove other than few, let's say you go with bills, let's say you go with lease agreement, stuff like that. But apart from that, you have to write a lot of things. You have to mention that sorry, just 1 second. Yeah. So basically you have to mention a lot of things such as doing what. So for example, if you show that the husband is off hours, so the wife is making the food. Okay. That's fine. But then you show that, oh, on the weekend, he cleaned the house for her, right? So you have to balance it out, show that how the day-to-day activities are being conducted, right? So that's very, very important, because if you show the day-to-day activities are being conducted properly, it's very natural. It should be very natural, very proper. You can't say that one person is paying for everything, he's also cleaning, he's also doing everything, and the wife is not doing anything. So they will raise a question that then how does it work as a family unit, right? Like who's doing what? So they'll ask you those questions. So apart from that, obviously we have other aspects. One of the important aspects is social aspects. Now, obviously, you have to show that you are publicly known to be together. For example, if you have a birthday party, if your friend had a baby, or your friend has a baby shower, anything, so you both are, right? So if there's a wedding of your friends, you both are attending those weddings, you're both attending those events. If you're going out together, right? So those things matter because they want to see that you are a couple, but then other people also know that you are a couple, right? So that's very important. So it's all, again, there are a lot of ways to prove it. One of the ways is that you show pictures. Let's say you went to a sporting event, show picture. If you went for a birthday party, you might have taken a group picture, show that you both were there at the same time. If you went to some trip, right? So if you're there and the people around you there, so that's a very good piece of evidence that people know that you are a couple, right? So it should not be a surprise for your friends that, oh, they're a couple, right? So this is how it can be done. And obviously we can get statements from your friends and your family, your parents, stuff like that. So that adds to your file. Now the last of the four pillars is nature of the commitment. Now, nature of commitment, obviously, this is all about logic. Basically, they will try to understand, let's say, if you're from the same community, right? So if let's say, if you're an Indian, they'll expect you to marry probably from Indian background, probably from your own state as well. Let's say you're from Andhra Pradesh, so you probably expect you to marry someone from South India as well. If you're married there within the same language speaking community, so they'll make more sense to them that, okay, you're marrying within the same culture, so they'll understand that why you're getting married to this person. So if you're marrying someone, let's say an Indian marrying a Vietnamese or a Mongolian marrying, they will accept it. They won't stop the visa. They won't do anything wrong, but they'll try to put more focus on it, like what's going on here. So if you're talking about the relationship, they'll always try to understand, like if it's not from the same background, ethnic background, lingual background, they'll try to understand what happened, right? So you'll have to explain it in your writing that, oh, we are from different culture, it was a bit troublesome, we got together, how it worked, like, so you have to explain everything in words. So that puts a lot of more onus on you to prove, like, like how's it going, basically, because they know that if you're from different culture, they friction. So they want you to explain those sort of things, right? So people from two different religious background, obviously they know there'll be a bit of friction. So you have to explain how you're going to continue relationship and how is it going to work. So that's one thing. Obviously, let's say even if you're obviously let's say applying together, the statements make a big difference. We can see the whole story. Like for example, if a person is putting a statement, a sponsor is putting a statement, they can mention it, and you have to be as truthful as possible. If it's an arranged marriage or is a love marriage, either way you have to mention very clearly that how did you guys meet, what was the how the relationship evolved, like and let's say how, like, did you go out together? If you went out together, okay, when did you started messaging each other, when did you start living together, when did you get engaged or married, like all of those things do matter. Like if you went to a trip to, let's say, Fiji, so they will try to know that, okay, you went there and where's the evidence? Where's the ticket? Where's the hotel booking? Where's the Uber booking, right? So they'll ask you those kind of questions. But obviously you have to write a lot of things that, okay, we went there, we liked each other, we liked each other company more, like you have to mention the whole story. So when they read the story, it's very obvious it's genuine or not, right? So they can make a assumption based on that. Now moving to one of the interesting but troublesome points, Schedule 3 criteria. So Schedule 3 criteria is a problem for some of the applicants, because if, again, it's not for everyone, it's for certain people. If it works in two places. If you don't have a substantive visa and you're applying for a partner visa, and substantive visa is all visas except for bridging visa. So let's say you're on bridging visa and you apply for a partner visa, they will say that you need a compelling reason to apply for it. Okay. But if you are illegal, then you have to definitely explain and find a really good reason, because if you're on a bridging visa, they'll still be more forgiving and lenient towards you. But if you're not on a bridging visa, you're completely illegal, because there are cases, I had some cases in which the person was completely off grid for the last 7 years, and now they're marrying an Australian citizen. So it is going to be tough, because they will use it against you, because this criteria doesn't allow them to apply. It opens up a pathway for them that they can apply, but it is always much harder to prove, much harder to basically establish a relationship. But we have done cases like that. It does work, but it is troublesome. So this is, again, only for certain people it works. Okay, so it's relevant only. So I'm not going to put too much time on this. Let's move to the next. So obviously, you can get a waiver for Schedule 3 as well, but your reason has to be very compelling, and you could use reasons. Now, one of the most common reasons is that you have a child together. If you have a child together, you can justify that we have a child together, or we have some reason because of me, there are people who are having employment. You have to make a very good reason. Based on that, they can consider it. So again, if you're on a bridging visa, they'll still be much more lenient towards you. If you're not on a bridging visa, if you're illegal completely, it's going to be very tough, because they'll try to make sure that you are basically you have a very solid grounds to apply on, right? So, and those grounds are usually very hard to meet. Now, if we go for something like let's say another interesting point, dependent visas. Now, how it works is for dependent visa, for if you're applying for someone and they have dependents on them. Let's say a person, an Australian, is getting married to someone in Thailand, and she has 2 children, for example. Now, the mother and the children, all 3 will get the visa together. Okay, so all 3 can get the visa together, but their conditions is not going to be a walk in a park where it's going to be a slightly more complicated, but possibility. How? Because you can show that obviously that the children are dependent on the mother for the basic needs, as I mentioned on the slide, that for food, clothing, shelter. Okay, and they must be enrolled in full-time studies. So you have to prove that they are a full-time student and they are not older than 23 years of age. Okay, because after 23, they expect them to be independent. Okay, even if they are above 23 or 23, one of the few reasons they can still apply, get the visa, is if they are mentally impaired or something. But obviously, it creates a new problem in health issues. But again, it's a possibility. But the general criteria is if the partner's children are under the age of 23, they can easily come to Australia as long as they're not earning a lot of money or they're not working full time. So in these cases, we recommend people to not apply uh, for dependents who are, let's say, 20-year-old and they're already working full time. Okay, so that's something you have to be careful about. Now let's move to the another part, online marriages. Now this is online marriages common in certain countries like such as Pakistan, Bangladesh, in which online marriages are accepted by law. So that is fine. We have done cases like that. Even the law allows it, but it's slightly more complicated because then the onus will be on you to justify that you have met the partner at some point. Let's say if it's your cousin, you get marrying your cousin, second cousin, third cousin, whatever. You can easily justify that you met at a wedding or we met at some point, right? Obviously, if it's a family friend, again, you can prove it easily. You might have pictures together in the same wedding or same events. But if you are from two different cities and you never met together, just met someone online and getting married, that won't work. So it has to be, you have to have met at some certain point. Okay. Now they won't judge you even if you met for a single day. That's fine. But you should have met in physical form in one at least once before applying for it. So this is one thing. Now, this is very common for some of the clients, let's say for Muslim wedding, the element of nikah, you can do an online nikah that works. And that has, the only challenge is basically a lot of times people are not able to prove when they met. They don't have the pictures or any evidence to prove. So that's also very important. So sometimes if you had an engagement and then you came to Australia and you applied from Australia, that's fine. That will work. Okay. Your engagement, you can get married in Australia and that should be fine. But again, the onus of evidence will be on you. All right. So that's one thing. Now let's move to the family violence element. Now, family violence is one of the factors in which uh, it becomes very tough to get a visa, because if you sponsor the person who's sponsoring the applicant, if they had any let's say any issue in terms of, let's say character problems, let's say they had some AVO against them and they had some battery or assault charges against them, the getting the visa granted is very important, because see, partner visa is essentially two applications if you think about it. The first one is the visa applicant himself or herself who are applying, and then the partner who's sponsoring the applicant. So both applications have to be gone separately. Now, as a sponsor, if your character is not good, if you had violent history, if you had run in with the police, or you had problems like that, then obviously it's very hard to justify that like you're not going to commit the crimes again, or you, so they make it really hard for you to sponsor someone. So that's why it's very important that if you had a basically criminal history, or you have any problem running with the law, make sure you consult a migration agent or a immigration lawyer to make sure they understand and they can tell you, assist you how to cover up those elements. For example, if you've been in I'll give you an example. I had a grant for a person who the sponsor was, I won't tell too much details, but I just tell you the main onus, the main gist of the case. So the applicant, he was involved in a assault. Okay, so they had assault, he injured someone and the person pressed charge. So basically he was convicted basically. So he spent, I think, 6 months or something in jail as well. So the problem was obviously because of that, the visa was at risk. Okay, and immigration did raise an issue. We covered it up by the fact that dad was 7 years old. Okay, that issue was 7 years old, and in this time he has never had even a single parking ticket. So he's evolved, he's learned his lesson, he's improved. So that's one element that we can use, that okay, the person improved, or the person has went through anger management classes, or they have done therapy, so we have to get letter from a psychiatrist or therapist that they've improved, they're not the same person. So there's a lot of element we can do to cover it, but then again, at some point it is risky, right? So that's something you have to be careful about. Now, okay, now one more element is that obviously any criminal history will affect your visa, so that's a big problem. But now let's talk about the planning. So I kept it really simple. I do not writing anything on the screen. I just rather talk about it, because this is like the trickiest part in the whole of the application, right? So a lot of people, this is like the single most common question I get for partner visas. whether we should apply the visitor visa first and then come onshore and apply the partner visa, or we apply the partner visa and then apply the visitor visa. Okay, so both can be done. The difference is quite big, because what happens is, for example, if you get married, okay, if you're getting married in Australia, you're onshore, okay, it's straightforward. Okay, if you're married, or sorry, if you're married onshore, it's very straightforward. You get married, you apply the V20. But if your partner is offshore, okay, let's say you get married and your husband is offshore. Now, for them to be sponsored, obviously they can potentially come to Australia on a visitor visa. And when they're here on a visitor visa, let's say for 3 months, they can apply the partner visa onshore, and they'll be on a bridging visa for the next almost 2 years, okay, or as long as the visa processing takes. Okay, now in this bridging visa period, they can obviously work, they'll have the Medicare card, everything, so they'll be in a very comfortable spot. But then again, they won't have a solid visa. Every time they have to exit the country, they have to get a bridging visa B and exit the country and come back. So obviously it's a bit of a hassle, but it is possible. But at least they can work full time. Okay, and they have a Medicare card. The other option is that you apply the offshore visa and then you come to Australia on a visitor visa. Okay, now why would someone apply for offshore when you can get a visitor visa and come to Australia? There's a very big reason for that. There are actually two reasons. The first reason is the time. If you notice in the earlier slides, if you're applying offshore, the time is shorter. The time is averaging around, let's say, 12 to 15 months. Okay, sometimes 17, sometimes 10 months as well, but the average is 12 to 15 months. That's the average time. So obviously time is shorter. So a lot of people want to get the visa quickly. So they rather than waiting for 2 years on a bridging visa in Australia, they rather wait for 1 year overseas and get the visa and then come to Australia as a on a partner visa, right? Alternatively, if you think of second reason for this is basically the risk. The risk. Why is the risk is a problem? Because what happens if you're applying offshore for a partner visa? Obviously, you know it's getting granted. When you apply the visitor visa first and then come to Australia to apply, the problem with that is the visitor visa can be refused. Now, a lot of time, if you're from, let's say, a level 1 country, low migration risk country, let's say France or Italy or UK, you know your visitor visa will be granted, like 99.9% sure, right? It will be granted within a day, same for 1 hour, right? But if you're from South Asia, Southeast Asia, East Asia, or African countries, the problem is your visitor visa is always risky. There's always a 50% chance of getting a refusal. Okay, so that's why no matter how good your application you put in, there's always a chance for refusal when you apply for a visitor visa. So that's where the problem occurs, that a lot of times people apply for visitor visa, they take 2 months and then they refuse you. Now, when they refuse you, obviously again it creates two problems. One, that you didn't get the visa, and number two, you have a refusal on your file now. So there's obviously, whenever you apply the actual partner visa now, they will know that you had a refusal. So it does not necessarily, but it can potentially affect your file, right? So that's another angle. So now again, when you think about in these terms, it puts things in the right perspective, that if you're, let's say, getting married and the partner doesn't want to work right away and they want to just spend time with you, they can just apply this offshore visa. And when you apply the offshore 309 visa, and then after that you apply the visitor visa, the chances of that visitor visa goes really, really high, right? Like then obviously, and by the way, just letting you know, we have a lot of clients for whom we applied the offshore visa first, and then we apply a visitor visa, and we got for 1 year. Usually we get only for 3 months. For them, we got 1 year, because we openly explained that we already uploaded the acknowledgement letter, that we already submitted the partner's application. So we are not hiding anything. She is going to come to Australia eventually. So please granted 1 year access. So she doesn't need to apply, waste money every time. She doesn't need to travel on and off and spend 5,000 for tickets every time. So, so that's how you put it to them. So that's why it's easier. So you get a 309 first and apply that. And while that processing is going on, you apply visitors and bring your wife or your husband to Australia. So that's the easier way to do it, especially if they're from Asian, African, South American countries. Now, coming to the other option, 820, obviously a lot of time partner wants to work and they need some basically they need the work rights, then it's smarter to bring them on a visitor visa for 3 months. Don't get the 6 months, don't get the 12 months, get only the 3 months, so that they come here and after 3 months and before 3 months had ended, we apply the partner visa 820. Now, the only thing that can stop you from applying 820 is basically no further stay condition. Sometimes they put a condition called no further stay 8503, in which you cannot apply for another visa while you're onshore. But that's again, that's not in every case, only 10-20% cases. So it comes down to luck as well. That element is a bit of a luck thing, right? So yeah, so I think this is, I think, the main thing. Now, guys, I'll go with the questions. Obviously, I know you've been hearing me talk about the boring stuff for quite a while, so sorry about that. It's just part of the job. Obviously, now let's go. Let's try to go with the question. I think there are a few questions in the basically chat box. So let me quickly go one by one. Okay. Okay. So let's go with Rijul first. So they're asking that, so that if someone has applied 309 offshore for January 2023, gets 309 approved for January 2025, they can apply on 2nd Jan 2025. Essentially, yes, that's true. You can apply it because you have completed 2 years. Usually the moment you get it, you're also eligible to apply for you get the same email the same day that you're eligible for the second stage visa. We call it second stage visa. That's what we call it, but it's essentially the same thing. Now, okay. Voice is low. Sorry about that. Okay, so now, okay. Sarfaz asking, if you do not have any joint account with the partner, then which other document will replicate this? Okay, Sarfaz, so basically, again, none of the documents is compulsory. Let's put it like this. Okay, except for obviously marriage certificate or your de facto certificate, but pretty much everything else is open. You can, most of the document, like 80% of them are not compulsory. For financial, again, this is just one of the evidences. I know a lot of couples who have been married for 10 years, they don't have a joint bank account even today. That's fine. But if you don't have it, then you can show something else. I'll give you an example. Let's say let's say for example, your wife is back in India, for example. If you send her money, let's say you send her $200 every month to her account in India, in her name only, that's also evidence, right? That you are supporting your family. So that can work as well. That just keep the receipt, keep the record, and that will work. Or alternatively, you can have a superannuation statement in which you can add her as your dependent, right? So that's also pretty solid, because there's there's no one size fit all. Obviously, every family is different, every family dynamic is different. So you can have alternate documents, that's fine. But again, one thing is not the only thing. So even if a lot of people, I'll give you an example. I personally, again, this is a personal thing, I won't say officially, don't take my word officially on this, but it's a personal thing. I don't really care too much of the bank statements, because I know there are other documents you can cover it from, because a lot of times if the bank statement is empty, it's of no use to us. Literally, if you have a bank account, there's no transaction, what will I do with it? I only need it if you're genuinely there. Like if your wife is offshore, let's say you're here and your wife is in Pakistan. Obviously, you might need joint bank account, maybe in Pakistan, maybe for transferring some money, but probably because obviously, how will you show the transaction? You're not living together. Her bills are getting paid by her father. So how would you show that you're, using the account to pay your bills and everything? So it's mixed bag, right? So it depends on a lot of factors. It has to be logical, right? So I hope that answers. Swati Devi is saying, if someone is in a de facto relationship and nothing was formalized, can it be done before making application for partner visa? Yeah. That's the whole point. Like that registration certificate I'm talking about, one of them, actually, even if you fill out the application, one of the main reasons they ask you, like, why are you applying for this? One is that for visa purposes or immigration purposes. So you can write it, and that's very normal, because you need something solid to apply the visa. You can use it. So 100%, that's you can apply right before it. That's totally fine. Okay. And by the way, interesting point, you don't even have to have a certificate in your hand. Let's say because the certificate takes almost 55 days to be delivered. So you can just apply for it and apply the visa, and when the certificate is available, upload it. Simple, right? Now RK is saying the visit visa refusal in past affects your application. What are the failure reasons for de facto visa? What documents are needed for de facto partner relationship proof. How can partner travel while being a visitor? Okay, so Arki, there are like 5 questions, so I will try to be quick in each of them. I'm sorry, like I can't do too much detail for one person, unfortunately, because there are a lot of questions here. So, but interesting questions. The first one: visitor visa refusal in past affect your application? Yes, but not to a whole like. So, for example, if someone has 2 visa refusal, let's say, so that does not mean they will be getting a partner visa refusal 100%. It's not like that. It just highlights her application or his application to your to the case officer. So what happens, they will sit up and see, okay, wait, what's going on with her. So they'll look at her application. So for example, if your reason is very basic, like some simple reason that we don't think she meets a GT criteria, so they refuse a student visa, that's fine. That will still not affect her visa, maybe a little bit, obviously just enough that because they know it is a negative mark on her case, definitely, but the reason was something out of her control, so that is still fine. But if a refusal is based on foul play, let's say fake documents or wrong age, wrong passport, fake details, uh, so those things will affect, right? So obviously it depends on that. Now the second question is, what are the failure reasons for de facto? So failure reason, like I think you asking like what are the reasons for failure? So I would say the main reason for failure is basically for, see, to be very frank with you, I don't get failures for partner with us. I have pretty much a 100% success rate. So I can tell you from obviously the news I hear from the refusals, but the only time de facto refuser, one of the is very obvious that the sponsor is not eligible. That's one of the reasons. Second is your application was very poorly done. So that's another reason. Now, why I'm saying it poorly done, I'm not trying to plug in our services, but I'm just telling you this is actually a very main cause. A lot of people, they just assume that, oh, we are in a relationship. Like, why do we need to prove so much? There's 3 documents and that's it. Doesn't matter how genuine you are, you still have to put the documentation in. So if your documentation is weak, they can just refuse you right away. They don't need to request 2 documents. They can just refuse you right away if they want to. So that's one of the reasons, obviously, they can refuse right away. But if you're doing everything properly by the book and being a little creative to make sure everything is covered, I don't see a reason to be refusing. Okay, so that's one thing. So you're asking also what document are needed. So document, obviously, that's something a very different game. Obviously, it's a very we don't have time right now to tell all the 20, 30 documents we have to talk about, but it's quite detailed, like obviously 20, 30 documents at least. Now you're saying, how can partner travel while being on bridging visa? Easy. They can just apply for the bridging the B. It costs $150. Apply for it, travel. It gives us 3 months period, travel and come back. Simple as that. Okay. Apart from that, I think one of the person messaged Mr. Modi. He messaged me that can you explain the prospective marriage visa? Okay, interesting. So prospective marriage visa is very it's there, but it's called subclass 300. The reason we don't apply a lot of the prospective marriage visa anymore is because it's taking quite a bit of time. So it used to be really quick, 3 months, 6 months maximum, you'll get it. Nowadays, it's taking 8, 9 months, 10 months. So a lot of times so long that I'd rather ask my client to get married and we can apply the partner is a 309 offshore and apply the visitor the next day and get the visitor with a granted within a month and bring the girl over. So that's easier. So rather than waiting for 8 months just for prospective marriage visa, but it is getting granted. We have clients like that, but very few people are going for it right now. Very few. That's why it's not a very relevant topic these days. That's why I did not cover it. But yeah, but you can apply for it. But just there's a risk. If your partner, and this has happened again, I'm not telling you this based on the knowledge only. I'm telling you this from my personal experiences with my clients. One of my clients, he applied a prospective marriage visa. I asked him 3 times, like, you sure? You sure? You sure? He was like, I'm 100% sure she's the one, everything, her family is good, everything's set, we'll do it. She came over and she changed her mind, he's not nice, blah, 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 20 reasons. And based on that, she broke up with him. She broke up and now he's screwed over because he can't sponsor anyone else. Okay. And that puts a very big mark on his case, because now if he wants to sponsor anyone else, it becomes very troublesome for him. Like, first of all, he can't sponsor someone for the next 5 years, but if we can try to get him sponsorship, it will be one hell of a task, right? it's going to be very hard. So that's why he screwed up, because the girl changed her mind. So that's why always make sure that if you're applying a partner visa, you're doing for the right person, right? So that's one thing. Now Lily is saying, yes, I would like to know if I'm going to register my defect to waiver 2 years period, will a free go. Okay. Okay, I don't understand your question, Lily. I'll just read it again. Yes, I would like to know if I'm registered. Okay.
Hi, sorry, I mistyped. I just wanted to ask, like, say my partner's gonna do a de facto, but if we register the relationship because we don't live together for the 12 months, and then if we had a prenup, would we still be able to apply? Like, would that affect the visa?
See, prenup can affect the commitment, but it's not it's not going to be a very negative thing, because it is allowed. And obviously, but you can easily hide the prenup, to be very frank with you. So that's one element. But if you mention to them, it will create negativity, because it will show that you're not committed, or the partner is not committed, right? Or you, it will show that financial bonding is not there. Okay, so your assets are your assets, his assets are his assets. So that creates a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
So that's something you have to be careful about. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. But I would say, so with prenups, you have to be very careful whether you, what you show, what you not show. You have to be a bit careful. But what was the other question? I just want to confirm, because what are you trying to say with this? Like for 2 years period waiver, what was that about?
Me, like about it. I meant 12-month period.
I don't know. I think I'm okay. I think there's some other question here. Okay, that's fine. So all right. You're RK, right? All right. So I'll move to the next question. So okay. So Roxanne is asking, my partner sponsored one girl before they were engaged and got her PR, but she got her visa. She canceled her engagement and they broke up. So now the partner is with me, but he has a record of sponsoring one. Yes, Roxanne, it is going to affect you negatively, unfortunately. So what's going to happen is, if you're I just mentioned this before, that if you sponsor someone, you cannot sponsor them for the next 5 years. So that we have to calculate when they apply and when the 5 years ends. So if let's say 5-6 years have passed, that is fine. Then we can apply right away. But it will create an issue. This is something you have to be careful about. You have to count it months, just to be careful, right? So Roxanne, I'm happy to obviously calculate these things for you, but obviously you guys can contact us. Obviously we are there. Like, by the way, I just move the screen to the information page. So by the way, this is our different branches. We have branches, 4 branches in Australia, 1 in India, 1 in Philippines. So obviously feel free to contact us. I'm available in the Sydney branch. So if you email at nsw@asiapacificgroup.com, it comes directly to me. I'll try to answer as many questions if I can, or I can book your consultation and take it from there, right? So that's just for your knowledge. Okay. So yeah, so basically, Roxanne, you have to be a bit careful, because it is going to be tough. It is going to be tough. It is going to affect your application. And also just letting you know that your partner should know that he can only sponsor 2 people in his whole life, pretty much. For the third person, it becomes very, very risky. So if he only sponsored 1 person before and you're the second one, it's all good. But then you have to be very careful at time wise. If 5 years have to be passed since the sponsorship. So that's one thing. Anyways, so I'll move to the next question, which is Kate. She's saying, my situation is I'm married before, but we separated last 2015. And ever since we don't have any communication. Now I have a partner for 5 years living together in UAE. Okay. Is it possible to bring him as a dependent? I'm planning to apply soon for student visa. Thank you in advance. Yes, of course. Kate, you can definitely do that. So basically, if you're applying for a student visa, definitely you can have your partner with you as a dependent, as a de facto, as long as you're living and you've been living together for 5 years. So that's more than enough time. Easily you can do that, right? As long as you have the right documentation, you have the bills together, rent, everything together, definitely can do it. If you need our support for it, we can help you as well. Okay. Do contact us. Thank you. Chahat is saying, what are the working rights for someone on a bridging visa? So again, bridging visa work rights depend on which bridging visa you have. There are like 4-5 types of bridging visa. So if you're bridging the A, B, you're allowed to work. You can do everything. But if you're bridging the C, you are not allowed to work. You have to ask for the rights, and you can get it, but slightly tougher, but you have to wait for a couple of weeks, but you do get the work rights. Being the E is there's no way you can get the work rights, right? So like you can get the work rights, but again, then it becomes tougher the further down. So C and E is tough, A and B is easy, simple, right? So now I'll move to the next one. Okay, so okay, I'll just say, okay, I'll cover most of the question. I'll go with Rijul Rastogi. Uh, so Rijul,
Hello.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, please tell me. Yeah.
First of all, hi Usman, how are you
I'm
doing?
good. Yeah.
Then thank you for taking out time at a busy day for explaining these
Yes.
visas. So
No, no.
actually, I'll just like to have a very like fruitful conversation with you, and it would be really helpful for others also who are here. So actually, I
Yes.
have already applied for my offshore 309 visa for my wife, and I did it
Okay.
last year tentatively in the month of May from UAE, Dubai.
Okay.
So
Good.
actually, like there are many eye openers which I want to clarify or like which I want to reveal, which many people might not be knowing. So actually, that timeline which you are showing for offshore visa, that works unfortunately only for white English speaking countries. Sorry to be like rude or like something, but that timeline, I'm 100% sure it's only for white English speaking countries. For countries like Arab countries, for countries like Southeast Asian countries, that timeline is more than 2.5 to 3 years actually. So actually how that timeline is, like what they have mentioned on the website for DIBP is they have calculated the processing time of all the offices around the world, and they have then like cumulatively averaged that scale down. So
No, no,
let
okay. So, Rijul, let me stop you there. I understand, but okay, first of all, I know what you're saying, and I also mentioned the level one country, low risk countries have slightly easier, definitely the case. But I have a lot of clients from Pakistan who had online nikah done. I have cases like my own cases who have gotten grant within under a 1 year period. So trust me, it is there. Like, see, again, I'm not again. See, obviously trust me on this because see, I apply on the industrial scale, right? So every year I apply for 70, 80 visas, partner visas only. So I can tell you that you're right in that sense that the online period. That's why I don't even use the online. If you notice, this is not the time frame for the online one, right? Online is very different, but to be honest, if you're doing the application correctly and everything, usually 1 year, 1.5 year, you'll get the visa. So that's one thing. If you're not gotten this time period, there could be some other reason, or you should have get it checked. But I'm just saying that that's one reason. Yeah. So we can't just put a blanket on
actually
it. Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, what will happen is if you file, let's say if you are filing someone's application from Pakistan, there is like a 80-20 rule here that 80% of the time the application will go to Amman, which is in Jordan. Since Jordan takes like it processes
Visual, I
all the
think,
Arab
Visual,
countries.
I think you have to understand. Like, this is not a. If you have any question, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, yeah. So like I'll
Like,
go
we
through
can
my
do the back
questions
and
again.
forth. I'm happy to
So
discuss with you over the cup
yeah,
of
yeah.
tea or coffee, but not over here
Yeah,
because
yeah. Like
we have 40
quickly,
minutes
I'll
here.
go through my questions here. Thank you.
Yes,
So
please. Yeah.
my first question is, if like we have also applied for the visitor visa. So if my partner comes here on the visitor visa,
Yeah.
will that means she will not be able to work, right? But
No.
if she gets a job in like as a in Dubai, if she can get an online job, can she work like
Yeah.
the?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the visitor visa says that you are not allowed to like not allowed to work at all. So
No,
will that
no,
online?
but this perspective. So you're not supposed to be a tax resident of Australia.
Mhm.
Okay, so if you're still working for, let's say, Oman or UAE and you're getting money over there, if you're getting paid in Australia, they send you the money in Australia, then Australian rules will apply to you. So freelance work, or let's say work from home, this is like the gray area. It's a very new problem, to be honest, but that can work. And this they can't. There's something. See, this is something you get paid in. For example, she's in Dubai, right? So she gets paid in Dubai. Her employers in Dubai. She's just working. There's literally no way. That will come into the file, literally. Yeah.
Okay. So the third question is regarding work rights. So if my partner comes, we have already applied for the visitor visa. If she comes here on the visitor visa
Yeah.
and then like gets the 309, because there's a rule running now that you don't have to be offshore to get the grant.
Correct. True.
Like don't know when that rule would be abolished. But when if let's say she gets the visa onshore, for the offshore visa, she gets it onshore on a certain day. So like will she have proper working rights, because I have heard from many people that the work rights of previous visa gets transferred to the new visa. So will she have 309 working rights,
Um,
or the visitor visa
this
should
is-
expire and then she will get the
no, so
309?
just let me get it clear. You're saying that if she's on a visitor visa, okay,
Hmm.
and she gets a 309 grant.
Hmm.
Let's say she
So
comes to
will
Australia. Let's say you're in Australia. Let's say you're in Melbourne. She comes to Melbourne and she gets a 309 grant. And you're asking what will be the work rights then? Is it
yeah, the visitor visa has not yet expired also. The
obviously
visitor
no? So okay, the very simple logic for it. So basically, legally, you can only hold one visa at a time. Okay. So the moment your 309 gets granted, overrides the previous visa, which is visitor visa. So the moment it's granted, visitor visa no longer exist.
and work rights also
Obviously,
yeah,
309.
okay, full work rights.
Same
Uh,
moment. Yeah.
one very like the most important question. So I got an RFI like last week only,
Yeah.
and the RFI was regarding the Indian police check, right? So
Yeah.
I am already an Australian citizen, so Indian police check I can't get it on my like Australian passport. So I surrendered my Indian passport already. So like what like where should I go to get the police check done now? Do you have any idea?
So
From
okay,
FRR?
see, VFS, if they're not allowing you to apply for the police check, the easiest way is that if, but you've been to India in the last couple of years.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah. So basically, obviously, you can use a previous one. Okay, and obviously, the one of the ways is go talk to VFS Global. Okay, they have an office in Sydney as well. Just talk to them; they will sort it out for you.
You have any idea about FRRO? Can we get through there?
FR, what's that? Sorry, I don't know about that.
Foreign Regional Affairs Organization, something.
No, I wouldn't know about that. I wouldn't know.
Okay.
Because usually, see, police check is something we send all our clients to VFS Global. There's like a private company which takes care of all these kind of things. The government of India has hired them for this kind of task, right? So I think they're the best people to assist you for that. Talk to them and they'll find a solution for you, 100%.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you for.
no problem. Okay, Rachel, thanks so
Thank you.
much, bro. Thank you. Take
No
care.
problem.
Bye-bye. All right. So I'll just go further down. Okay. Viral Modi, I've already explained your question. Prospective visa. Priyanka is saying in a student visa. I'm married for 4 years and we are separated now. Okay. The thing is, I did apply for dependent visa 4 years back, but it got rejected. Now I'm ready to do a new partner. We're living together. Able to apply for dependent visa again. Yeah, of course you can. Yeah, you can, as long as if you are married and you are divorced at the moment and you don't have any like the legal proceedings have been completed, because it can take up to 6 months to 1 year depending which jurisdiction you're using to get divorced. Let's say if they were, let's say, in India, so India usually takes 6-7 months to get divorce proceedings done. So if your divorce is completed, okay, you can easily apply for a new partner as a dependent easily. That's not a problem at all. Okay, but the question is if you are in a de facto or a married couple, as whichever you're applying for, because obviously de facto we have to prove that again either you're living together for 1 year or you have a relationship certificate. So one of the two have to be done. And if you're married, easy, just apply right away. Okay, so that's one thing. So yeah, so that's one thing. And now and by the way, just let you know, Priyanka, so just for your knowledge, one of the annoying things about student dependent is that some cases get granted in 2 months, some can take up to 9-10 months as well. So it depends which stage of your student visa you are. So if you don't even have a student visa for more than 6 months, it is going to be tough, because there's a 50% chance that you might not even get it. Your own visa will expire by that time. So so that is slightly tricky. So I would recommend come to us. We can help you. I'll assist you with understanding what's the best way. Or some people are about to go on a 485 visa. On the 485, attaching a partner is much easier, 10 times easier. So you might as well do that. So just an advice. So I'll go further down. It's like, I think Chahat has another question. I have been in Melbourne for the last 3 years, but my long-term partner has got his PR in Canberra. Now we both are on shore and with me on my TR till Feb. And if we get married in a year, I have a shore visa. What would be the working rights? Okay. So Chahad is very simple. So basically, you have your TR till February of 2025. Okay, so in 1 year time, let's say in end of 23 or let's say early 2024, you apply for the partner visa. So you will get a bridging visa. Okay, guys, this is for all of you. This is an interesting point. You will get a bridging visa, but it will not be active. Now, this is very interesting because on the bridging visa, they mention very clearly, because your current TR is active right now, which is the bigger visa, substantive visa, and it gives you full working rights. it's advantageous to you, they will not basically override that visa. So bridging visa will be there. You will have it as a safety net. Like once your visa expires, let's say you don't get a visa till February 2025. Okay. So, and you get a visa, let's say in end of 2025. So for the next 10 months, what will you do from Feb 2025 to December? You'll be on a bridging visa at that time. So the bridging visa will only kick in once your current TR expires. Okay, so that's easy. So you will be on a 485, but holding a bridging visa for as a backup. And the moment your 485 is about to end, at the end day, it will kick in the bridging visa. So this is the best way to understand. Okay, so you will have work rights pretty much throughout the period. So that's straightforward for you, to be honest. So okay, Zoom user, they're saying, hi, I'm an Australian citizen living in the USA, two American-born children, but have applied for Australian citizenship, but descent for them good. My wife of 5 years is American-born, trying to figure out the best option for us to move back to Adelaide, hometown, offshore versus visitor visa, and do onshore in Australia. Okay, for you, I think the simplest thing would be that obviously your children are Australian. Okay, by the way, this is very interesting. Again, a perfect case to explain this point. So for Mr. Zoom user, obviously we don't have his name, but he's an Australian citizen living in US and has 2 children with a partner, and they have been together for 5 years as a couple. So obviously children are Australian citizens, right? They have the rights within like a couple of months, they'll get the passport, everything sorted out. Okay. Now, because the wife, and because when you apply in such cases, when you've been for such a long time together, so what happens is you get the permanent visa and the PR together. You don't have to wait for it. So for example, if you apply for a visitor visa for her, okay, you and your 2 children can come, obviously you're citizens, so you can come to Australia without any visa, but your wife, she just needs a visitor visa to come to e-visa, just and that's it. She comes to Australia. Once she comes to Australia, you can apply the partners right away. And now, because you've been together for 5 years and you have 2 Australian children out of the relationship, automatically they will consider you for a fast track, number 1. And number 2, they will give you the permanent one along with the temporary visa together. So in such cases, what they do is they give you, let's say you apply now, after 1 year or 1.5 years, 2 years, whatever time, 820, and this without even applying for it, they'll grant the 801 right same moment. Like within 1 second, you'll get the both visas together. So that's the easier way to do it. So I think work right wise, I think for me, I think it's quite clear. It's smarter for you to come on, bring her on a visitor visa and apply onshore, so she can start working as much as she wants. And also you have both visas, permanent and temporary, coming in together. So simple, right? So this is the best way to do it. So I think it's for you, it's a good learning for others as well. Pradeep Kumar is saying the person eligible to apply for an offshore partner visa who has an Australian temporary visa and got married a few days ago in the same region and country. Also, what a document required. Okay, so if you're okay. So your visa is slightly different. You're not talking about partners. When you talk about a partner visa, there has to be an Australian citizen or a PR holder who should be a sponsor. In your case, because you're on a temporary visa, let's say you are on a 485 visa, which is like a very common visa. 485 visa, you can just apply for her 485 dependent or subsequent visa for your partner. Okay, and we can help you with that. And documents are a lot easier as compared to a partner visa, and it's a lot cheaper as compared to partner visa. Partner visas can cost pretty much $80 to $100 at this point. They, if you go with, let's say, let's say you go for something like let's say student dependent, 485 dependent, it's much cheaper, much easier, right? So that's the right way to do it. So yeah, so it's very different from the one topic we are talking about. This is partner visa, that's a dependent visa attached to the 485 or the student visa. So that's different, but we can help you with that. Please contact us. Okay, another question. So Daniel is asking, okay, the direct message. So Daniel, the answer, I wish I can't say that because it's kind of private. So I'll keep it very simple. Like, it will affect your case. It will affect the 801 visa. It will affect your case. Please contact us. We will help you with this, but with that condition you told us about, that will create a big problem. So we have to be careful, pre-prepared for it. Okay, so that's one thing. Now I'll go with okay. So we have a question from Asad. We are recently married couple, both PhDs, working academia. We are Pakistani citizens currently living and working in China and making decent money. We would like to immigrate to Australia. Was a PR pathway for us? Okay, so Asad, I think you should email me at nsw@asiapacificgroup.com or email me directly at usman@asiapacificgroup.com. I'll assist you with that, because PR getting easier. If you've done PhDs, it is quite easy right now. Okay, skill migration. Obviously, this is not the topic of today's discussion, so I can't go into too much detail with that. But if you've done PhD, I'm assuming it's in engineering or IT related field. We can make it happen. But email me directly, send me your resume. I'll figure out a way for you. Okay. Okay, so RK is saying range of fee for consultation charges when we lodge an application through you. So RK, so basically, it depends on the case, but we have a standard fee as well. So what we obviously you can just email us and I'll explain you directly. Okay, so yeah, that's one thing. Now Mahesh is saying I lodged 190 from Tasmania last week with 70 points. Now I can get married and not lose points before the visa grant. Well, I will wait till the visa grant and apply for partner visa. What a document does we need? Okay. So you apply the visa. See, 190 grant time is. I would say don't do anything. Again, if your partner can replace the points, then it's fine. You can get married before that. But the smarter thing is get the grant first, because the 190 is getting granted in 3 to 4 months right now. So even if it takes a little longer time, it will be 6-7 months. That's it. Rather than let's say taking risk, it's better to get the 190 grant first and then apply for partner visa. It's better rather than adding her right now, where it will cause, because you have to be protected. If your PR is solid, she will definitely come to Australia. But if your PR is not solid, then she's screwed over, right? So that's why let's try to make sure you are protected first, and then you bring her to Australia. That's an easier way to do it. So don't play with the points, because a lot of people are doing it, and immigration will at some point start to bite back. So please try not to do that. Cheryl is saying, I have a question. We lived here in UAE. Our problem is the address that we like a de facto for same sex. We can't have our both names in the contract. What can I do for that one? Cheryl, is fine. Like if you're if you are an Australian citizen or PR holder, or your partner is, even if you're same sex, it doesn't matter. Obviously, UAE's laws are slightly different, so we have to also take that into respect. But apart from that, even if you don't have both your names in a contract, you have other documents to prove that you're a couple, that's fine. We can see, remember, guys, all of you, we have 30 documents in our mind. Like if I give you the whole list, like 30-35 documents we can talk about, from social side to long-term commitment to history to your like financial document, a lot of documents. So it's not that you just, if you don't have an address together, you just can't apply. It's not like that, right? So don't worry about little details. Look at the bigger picture. If the whole picture looks good and one part is missing, that's fine. We need to make it work. So don't worry about it. And a lot of, I'll give you an example. I have a lot of clients in Australia. The guy owns the house, he has a mortgage in his name, he just gets married, the girl starts living with him. So obviously he doesn't want to transfer the ownership or something. So he just like, so her name is not lease or anything, like it's not, he's just partner, he owns the place. So obviously they don't have any contract together, right? So they can still apply as a de facto. So so that's why don't worry too much about it. There's a lot of ways you can cover it up. It's just that you have to be a little creative, a little smart, and be careful to operate within the law. And that's it. Simple as that. So Daniel saying, I'm currently on subclass 820 visa and will be 2 years in this July. Unfortunately, I got an AV in December, no conviction. Okay. So again, the same, I think I've answered this already. Roxanne, yes, please contact us. We'll there definitely for you. Adam and YV, interesting name. My partner and I applied for 820 partner visa. She received her temporary visa last November. How long until she gets a permanent residence? Okay. So Adam and so basically you have to count the day you apply the visa. Okay. So you got the visa in November. Let's say you applied in January of 2022. Okay. So it just from the day you applied, it will take 2 years. for them you to become eligible for the 801. Simple as that. Or alternatively, if you've been in a relationship for like long time, 5 years, 6 years, obviously then you can request them to send you earlier. But usually, if you've been in a relationship for 1 or 2 years only, they would only give you the invitation to apply the second stage of 801 once you are cross the 2-year mark. You'll get the email right away. Okay, so just check the date of your 820 visa lodgement and add 2 years on top. That's it. Okay. Okay. Charles, thank you so much. Welcome. Pradeep is saying thank you. Welcome. Yes. Okay. So perfect. I think I've covered all the questions then. Perfect. This is good. So all right. So guys, so basically, I'll just write my personal email as well. Just contact me here if you need any particular advices. Obviously, because just remember, obviously. Just 1 second. So just note down my email address. So obviously we are there. You can email me directly. I'm there, but obviously try to keep the questions specific. Obviously, I'll be able to help you with it. But obviously, if your case is complicated, I will probably ask you to come in for a proper consultation so we can assess the case, because a lot of time we have to be careful what you advise, because our advice is dependent on your situation, and every situation is different. Remember that no two relationships are similar. Okay, no matter how much you think you are very similar to a friend, you might not know your friend has done something different, and you get this a lot. Oh, my friend got it in 6 months, but your friend will not told you the whole story, right? So that's why you have to be very careful what you're doing. So don't care about what other people are doing. Focus on your own case, hire a professional and get it done. Simple. Okay. And I'm sitting in the Sydney branch. Please contact us. We are there. Thank you guys. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.